Right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to do this Know Your Rights presentation. Again, my name is Lisa Bernard. Some of you may know me as Elizabeth Bernard. I am the staff attorney on the School Justice Project here at Advocates for Children. And I'm so happy you guys could be here today. I am joined also by my colleague, Liliana, who will be handling the Q&A as well as answering any questions throughout. Maybe if those come up, that she can answer in the chat. However, we will take all questions at the end, so after the presentation is over. And we're really, really excited again to have everyone here today. We're going to be talking a lot about young people who are incarcerated, or maybe in certain types of placement. And so we're just going to get started. So again, AFC is an independent agency that protects the rights of all New York City students. And of course, our services include a helpline, which is open from Monday to Thursday from 10 to 4. We offer free legal services to low-income families. We have a slew of guides and resources that are at your leisure if you should run into any situations or have questions about education-related issues on our website at advocatesforchildren.org. We recently launched a new website, which is really, really beautiful. So please go and check it out. Of course, we have a slew of trainings and workshops that we provide, as well as our policy advocacy and impact litigation. So specifically, AFC, we have a ton of projects, but I am from the School Justice Project. And the School Justice Project was really launched to help young people who are facing system-related involvement, specifically court involvement, school suspensions, expulsions due to their behavior or bullying behavior. And we really want to help support students to address both academic and behavioral needs so that they can succeed in school while under these circumstances of any of those that I listed earlier. So today, our workshop and training will really focus on the general rights of students in both secure and non-secure placement. And we will talk about the difference between the two of those settings. The rights of students with disabilities, the rights of students once they are released to their communities. As you know, that can be a very complicated, as I see, we have a ton of professionals here, that can be sometimes a challenge as students are transitioning back from placement. And then we're going to do common enrollment issues, so things that are coming up throughout the time when a young person is transitioning and re-entering their communities, and what you can do to kind of resolve those things. And then we're going to just run through some takeaways, and at the end we will finally do a Q&A if things come up for folks that just they have questions about or may need some help with. And again, if there are things that may be challenging for you and you feel a need to have a one-on-one conversation with me, I'll also be providing my contact information so you can contact me directly. So let's get into it. The general rights of students in secure and non-secure detention. So first, we want to talk about what we know. And what we know today is that youth in juvenile or the child welfare systems are among the most educationally disadvantaged of all students. And so this means they're often overaged and undercredited. And nationally, nearly 2/3 of youth in the court system are Black and Latinx. And about 65 to 70% of youth involved in the justice system have a disability, particularly learning, emotional, and mental health. So these Black students who are largely impacted by this, who have disabilities and qualify for special education services, are suspended and expelled at especially high rates. And we, back in the day, I feel like some years ago, the school to prison pipeline was a really popular topic that many people were trying to address, and it was being discussed throughout the media and amongst professionals. And so we have this kind of chart here that kind of shows how what we illustrate as the school to prison pipeline at work. And so often young people are missing class for many circumstances that come up in their lives. And that leads to them being held back. Usually a lot of those young people are experiencing, again, some circumstances around behavioral challenges, and that leads to suspension, which definitely leads to them not graduating. And eventually that idle time results in them being involved in the juvenile system. And so this is what we illustrate as the school to prison pipeline, and how we kind of think of it in our own little body at AFC. So I want to talk a little bit about the difference between the two detentions that we're going to be addressing today. Secure detention is basically the traditional jail setting. This is there are two main facilities here in New York City that young people are sent to. And this is Horizons Juvenile Center in the Bronx. That's in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx. And Crossroads Juvenile Center, which I think most young people are sent to, which is located in Brooklyn, in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn. So children and youth in both of these facilities are under the care of ACS, meaning that both facilities are run by ACS. However, children and youth placed there attend schools that are run by the New York City Department of Education. And so we should keep this in mind, that although they are under the care of ACS, the DOE is still a large part of how they are experiencing school. And both facilities have more restrictive security features, and youth are not allowed to leave. So again, these facilities both mirror a traditional jail setting. Next, we have what is called close to home detention. And this is what we're calling our non-secure detention facilities in New York. And there are two types. There is the limited secure placements, which are known as LSPs, and then our non-secure placements, which are known as NSPs. So both NSPs and LSP facilities are operated by nonprofit providers. I should have added in here as well, which is a really important component, that these facilities are run by ACS. So again, just like our secure detention facilities, young people, while in the care of, while in NSPs and LSPs, are in the care of ACS. And these facilities are run by nonprofit providers. They are spread throughout the 5 boroughs as group homes. So they are group home type of apartment buildings where anywhere from 6 to 20 youth are placed in each facility. And this depends, again, on the size and location of the LSP or NSP. Youth in LSPs, which is our limited secure placement, attend school within the facility. So LSPs are their security features are more restrictive than that of the non-secure placements. So this limited secure idea, of course, it sounds like it may have maybe less restrictions. However, it has a bit more restrictions than a non-secure placement. And so the limited secure placement, kids do not leave to go to school. They actually attend school within that placement. Whereas the NSPs, non-secure placements, kids attend school within outside of the community, Kids attend school outside of the Passages facility, outside of the NSP facility. So what that looks like is in the mornings, kids are bused to a local Passages Academy site within the community. So they aren't going super far. They aren't going to another borough. Usually, it could be anywhere from a 15-minute ride to the school facility, and that is run by District 79, Passages Academy, which many of you may or may not be familiar with. Passages is running all of the NSP and LSP school programming. So again, that is a DOE District 79, and this is a lot of information. Again, we're going to be sharing these slides because this is a lot of information that if you're just hearing it or learning about it, it can be very confusing, and it can be a lot of information to take in at once. But just remember, limited secure placements are a little more restrictive. Kids attend school inside the facility. Non-secure placement, little less restrictive. Kids have the opportunity to leave to attend schools at a Passages Academy site. So this is one of the slides I think that is, if you've ever been to an AFC training, you've always seen this particular slide. So the compulsory school age and the right to attend. And I want to just point out that this is true even for students in detention and placement settings. So just because a young person is in the care of ACS and in a detention or placement setting, these do not disappear, right? These rights do not disappear. Students must stay in school between 6 and 16 years old, and school districts can require until the end of the school year when they turn 17 for them to attend. However, they may stay in school if they are over that age, right? And so they still have the right to attend. It's at their own leisure if they exceed this age. However, we know that students still must attend. And because we know, because of Raise the Age and other laws that are currently in place, that 16 and 17-year-olds are now at horizon and crossroads, this means that all young people placed in these settings should be attending school. So let's go through some basic rights. So I guess I want to go back actually and ask for a quick poll. So if you can, I would love for folks to participate. And I'm not sure if you saw the answer in our first, in the slide I just went to. However, I would love for you guys to quickly answer this poll. Students have the right to return to the school they attended prior to placement or detention. And you're just gonna say whether or not that is true or false. I'm gonna give it one more second to see if others have answers. One more minute. If folks want to type in last minute answers, there's no penalty here, I promise. We just want some participation while we are talking through this. All right. So it seems we have about 96% of people who think this is true, and the rest thinks this is false. So this was a bit of a trick question. Students actually have the right to attend their former schools if, there's a caveat, if there are no court orders in place which prevent their attendance. So as we know, with court-involved young people, they live, complicated lives in terms of maybe circumstances that had landed them in placement in the first place. Sometimes those circumstances include an incident that occurred at the school. And what this means is that sometimes in place are either limited or full orders of protection, which would prevent them from attending that previous school. If this does not exist, if this is not the case, if, the school has absolutely nothing to do with the incident, it is absolutely the student's right to attend the former school that they were in before placement. So the answer is technically kind of a trick. So it is true, but it also could be false if a student has a full order or a limited order of protection. So next we have that middle school students at Passages must be given grade level work and be able to take citywide tests, and high school students must be able to sit for Regents exams. So what we've seen, like we discussed earlier, is that there are many young people who are overage and undercredited. And so this may mean that often we have 16-year-olds who may be in the 7th or 8th grade, and they're getting high school work. And that shouldn't happen, right? So we should make sure that if a young person is in placement, we know that maybe they may be in 7th, 8th grade. If they're at the middle school level, they should be receiving work that is also at the middle school level. And they should also be sitting for those citywide tests on the same day. So they should be following a DOE schedule, just as though they were in the care of their parents, right? And so again, ACS does have a responsibility to make sure that students are receiving an education. When we say that students in placement are in the care of ACS, ACS is technically acting as parents. And so that responsibility is still in the hands of ACS. And so this means that both high school and middle school students should be sitting for city exams, including the citywide tests that we have and the Regents exams that are administered. So Passages, again, is a DOE school. Therefore, all credits earned should be transferred once a student transitions out of detention or placement. And what does this mean? This basically means that once a student is transitioned and has re-entered the community, there should be no question. There should be no question about whether or not a student has any credits. At some point, whether it's 1 or I've seen students earn up to 10 credits, depending on how long they've been in placement, all of those credits should be transferred back to the original school or the school that they are enrolling in. All of these credits should be reflected on their transcripts. This does not always happen. And so I think it is really important that if you are an advocate, you make sure that this is something that is happening in real time. We have seen students who have wound up repeating a grade because they were not given the credits that they earned while in placement. And so we don't want this to happen. It's very important, a big, big one, because I feel like if a student can go to school in circumstances when they're in placement or detention, and they can earn credits, they should absolutely be granted those credits once they transition. And so this is a big one for us at AFC. If a student transitions out of placement mid-school year, the student should be placed in those same classes once back in the community. So again, if a student, let's say, enters placement, I don't know, maybe let's say in September, and is like released from that placement in January, we want to make sure that if a student is taking a language arts class or a certain type of math class, that they're put back into that class so they can continue to earn the credits that they started to earn while in placement. And so this is another thing that doesn't often happen, but can easily happen if there is some communication with the staff at Passages. So students in both secure and close to home programs have the right to receive special education services. And this is, again, a big deal. This is AFC's bread and butter, right? Specifically focusing on students with special education needs. Everyone should know that just because you're in detention, this does not mean that my son or daughter or a young person now does not have the right to receive the services that are on their IEP if they have an IEP. So students with IEPs have the right to receive special education services that are similar to those on their IEP. So it's really important for everyone here to know that while a student is in placement, they should be receiving something called a special education plan, which is the equivalent to an IEP. It's called an SEP. And SEP meetings should be happening within a month of a student entering a placement setting. So once a student enters a placement setting, whether it's an NSP or an LSP or secure detention, they should have a meeting where they discuss whether or not the student has an IEP. If the student does have an IEP, there needs to be an additional meeting set up with the school psychologist at Passages or at the placement setting, maybe the secure detention, because there is a school psychologist at Horizon and Crossroads. That meeting should be happening to make sure that the services that are on the IEP mirror what is on the SEP now that the student is in placement. So a student has the right to certain special education services while in placement. Passages Academy must get a student's IEP within 5 days of the student attending Passages. So again, this is something that doesn't often happen within our systems and is a huge problem. Passages should be having any contact with the student's community school within 5 days so that they can retrieve that IEP to get it to mirror an SEP. We're going to have one more poll before we go into the next slide for some participation. And the question is, parents have the right to participate in IEP and SEP meetings while their child is in placement or detention. This is, again, a true or false question. We want to know, do you think that parents have the right to attend? Now, remember, young people are in the care of ACS while they are in placement. So what does this mean for parents? I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes, a few more minutes to see if folks want to participate and give some answers. Yeah. All right. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. Everyone answered correctly. And so the answer is true. Parents have the right to attend. I think this is one of the contentions that many parents have. We've heard at AFC, a lot of times parents are not receiving information, notices, emails, letters about IEP meetings or SEP meetings that are happening while their child is in placement. And so parents are often in the dark about how their children are doing, if their children are receiving certain services. And this is not appropriate. Passages should reach out to parents or guardians and work to develop what is called, again, the special education plan, which we discussed a little bit earlier, which is similar to the IEP meeting. And again, I told you guys, this meeting must be held within 30 days of the student's admission to Passages. So again, they should get the IEP within 5 days of their admission to Passages, but this meeting must be held within 30 days so that a student can start receiving the special education services that they're entitled to or that they were receiving while in their school in the community. So this is really, really important that parents are a part of this. I have seen personally, time and time again, many of the parents who contact us who have students who are in placement have no idea what is going on. And obviously, this is very unsavory for parents who have children with IEPs because they don't know if certain related services are being received, right? So it can be really important for children or young people to get certain counseling, especially when they're in placement settings. This is a huge problem. And I think many times parents do not know how to navigate this issue. And so I'm really happy to say we'll be revealing that in the end, how we can get these issues resolved. So these are the basic rights that I think was important to kind of go over. So we're going to step right into transitioning from close to home. Again, transitioning from close to home, we're talking about our LSPs, limited secure placements, and we're talking about our NSPs, non-secure placements. So this is separate from detention at Crossroads and Horizon. So when a young person is transitioning from any close to home site, each student should have a placement or permanency specialist assigned to plan for the student's reentry. This is another common issue amongst our systems. Our young people are not receiving permanency and placement specialists in time to make sure that they have a planned out reentry, especially in terms of education. And specialists should work along with the DOE and the ACS education unit to plan for the student's reentry, right? And so what this should look like is there is someone from the DOE, from the district where the student lived prior to placement, an ACS education unit person, so that can be maybe a case planner or an ACS education specialist. And then there should be someone from either Passages or a case manager at the LSP or NSP who are working and coordinating together to develop a reentry plan for a student. And again, this looks like talking through things such as safety, talking through whether or not a young person wants to go back to a specific school, talking about and discussing how much progress they made or did not make while in placement. These are all things that will determine what the placement setting is and what the reentry plan is for their education when returning home. So specialists should remain in communication with the youth's homeschool to ensure a smooth transition. So what does this mean? This means that there should be someone in placement who is in constant communication with someone at the former school to say, hey, we didn't get the IEP, or hey, this student earned 7 credits and will be transitioning back into the community very soon. What does this look like? Can we get them enrolled? Do you have a seat? This is something, again, that is not happening. It does not happen often. And we are really intentional and looking for ways to make sure we're holding our systems accountable to say, hey, our young people are supposed to be in constant communication with their homeschool, and so that when they transition, they have a place to go and they feel comfortable and they feel like they were a part of the process in planning for their education reentry. And this just doesn't happen enough. So we are working on this. We really are. And then lastly, specialists should also coordinate with the DOE and the Committee on Special Education. So this is where it's appropriate. If you work with special education students who are receiving special education services, you know that the CSE is a large part of a lot of what is decided in terms of placement, IEPs, et cetera. And so we should also make sure that specialists are in communication with the CSE. And this is to ensure that necessary evaluations are completed and submitted. Meetings have occurred, and then the youth's grades and credits are clearly articulated to the DOE team. Again, we see that this is not always happening. I think this is this is a bigger issue, I think, because we have parents who have concerns about the services that a students may be getting while they were in the home. And they often want to have reevaluations done. And parents are like, can I request a reevaluation of my child? What can I do while they're in placement? And the answer is absolutely. If a parent is concerned about where their child, what services their child is receiving or not receiving, or just has some concerns in general and wants a reevaluation done, they can absolutely reopen the IEP and have reevaluations done while their child is in placement. Again, the DOE is in these placement settings. The DOE has a school psychologist who is ahead of a team who can make sure that these evaluations happen. So specialists should also work alongside DOE to ensure that appropriate school placement and transportation have been arranged. Um, Again, appropriate school placement, a huge issue. We want to make sure that not only are young people safe, but that they're receiving the services that are appropriate if they have an IEP. And so the DOE and these specialists should be in communication to make sure that is done. And again, these are rights of young people in placement. This is an automatic. And so this should not be, if you're an advocate, this should not be you calling to say, um, hey, can you do this? No, this is what they're supposed to be doing. And so as an advocate, as I know we have a ton of professionals here, you should absolutely be calling the specialists within these placement settings, getting in communication with them to say, hey, what's going on with the school placement? What's going on with transportation? Have we started discussing an education reentry plan for this young person? These are things that you just have to follow up on. And again, specialists may use the youth's last home visit to escort the youth and family to the DOE enrollment center. So I want to just point out that this last bullet does not apply to students who are in secure placements. Obviously, if you're in secure placement, you cannot leave the facility. However, youth in non-secure placements, and again, this is a lot of information that I don't expect anyone to remember, but we've placed a little bullet with a link here so you can go back and find this information. But I want to explain that if a young person is in a non-secure setting, they have certain merits that they reach while inside. And this basically grants them a home visit for the weekend. So it doesn't feel like the traditional placement setting because they can leave and go home if they achieve certain milestones while they're in placement. And so this allows them to go home for a Friday, Saturday, and return Sunday. They can spend time with their family, catch up with their family, and then return back to the placement setting. And so a specialist may use the youth's last home visit to escort the youth and the family to the DOE enrollment center. And so we know these as family welcome centers with the required documentation so that they can take additional steps to ensure that the youth is immediately re-enrolled in appropriate placement at reentry, right? And so I think this is an extra step that specialists don't necessarily have to do. And often many of them don't, unfortunately. But I think it is something as advocates, we can push specialists to do. We can say to an education specialist, hey, there's a last home visit coming up for a youth that is matriculating out of a placement setting. Would you mind taking the family to the welcome center to just get them enrolled in the next school so that once the youth is out of placement, they can start school right away. Again, we've included a link here so that you can have these specific rights that are outlined. And guess what? AFC didn't make it. AFC did not make this. The city made this plan. And so all of these responsibilities on the DOE, on ACS, on the specialist are outlined in this very, very clear plan that the city has administered and posted on their website as a guide for us to know what students have the right to. And so in addition to it being on this slide, there's also this link that we've given you guys so that you can read those things yourself. And there's more information about placement in secure and non-secure settings. So moving on to secure placement. So transitioning from secure placement. And again, secure placement is Horizon in the Bronx and Crossroads in Brownsville. And again, this is our traditional jail setting where a student is not allowed to leave and doesn't have as much contact with the outside world. So youth in secure detention have limited resource for education reentry planning when compared to youth in close to home. Now, I want to point out that this is kind of it doesn't make sense. I think for a lot of us, this doesn't make sense. Why would a young person that is in a secure detention facility, right, in a more traditional jail facility, have less resources than a young person that is in a non-secure, limited secure placement, who gets to go home sometimes, who again, they go on trips, they do a lot of things, that which is wonderful, and we're here for all of that. However, I do think that it is a bit backwards that our young people that are in secure settings don't have as much resources. And so what this looks like for reentry planning for education is very, very, very different. So each youth in a secure detention facility is assigned an ACS manager. So case managers are, folks who are kind of helping them with the history of their case, making sure they're in compliance, making sure they're doing what they need to do while inside of a secure detention facility. And so case managers can offer help and resources to parents or guardians of youth who are transitioning out of secure detention. So they can offer some information about what to do. So what this could look like is a parent going on a visit at the jail to say, hey, I want to see my kid. And then the young person's the case manager can say, hey, I know he's getting out in a couple weeks. Here's some information that you can use to get your son back in school. So there's no education specialist. There's no like constant contact between DOE and like the folks at the secure detention facility about what's happening with the young person. That's not really happening. I want to say that there is a school psychologist within the setting, so within Passages Academy in the secure detentions, and she may or may not be in contact. This is one person, I believe, now who's over all of these young people in secure settings, and so she does her best. And if you guys are working with people who if you're working with a young person who is in any placement at Horizon or Crossroads, please reach out to me and I'll get you in contact with that school psychologist. But she is basically the person who would be giving a lot of the information about what's happening with the student to parents or advocates. And so case managers, under our next bullet, case managers can assist with getting a student's transcripts and contacting someone at DOE to help with placement. But again, the word can, I'm using the word can because they're not required to. They can give you some information. And I, in my experience, many of the case managers care deeply about the young people and will help where they can if they have the knowledge. And we love that. So if you have a case manager at either Crossroads or Horizon who is willing to help, I'd say take it. And again, unfortunately, on our last bullet, parents are not provided with as much assistance. So parents can visit their local family welcome center once a youth has re-entered to get assistance with enrollment. And obviously, this is not ideal. I think this is really unfortunate that our youth in secure settings are given such limited resources, especially when they're at such a great disadvantage. So now I want to talk about common issues. So earlier we discussed just kind of like we discussed a lot, right? A ton. But there are just 4 things that I want you guys to really think about, because if you're an advocate, if you're a professional who is working with court-involved young people, whether placed in secure or non-secure placement settings, you are going to run into some very unique issues that may either be case by case, or just maybe, something that is common in terms of what we're seeing with our young people who are court involved. So the first one, the DOE often fails to provide students with school placement even after they are released. So what this means is whether or not they're in secure or non-secure, oftentimes our young people get home and they don't have a school setting. And this creates a large gap between the time that a student gets out and when the student is actually finally placed in a school. I think this is one of the largest concerns for many parents, because what we know is that idle time can often lead to that revolving door of going right back into detention settings. And so we want to make sure that not only are young people given a school placement, but they have that immediately so that they can have time to get reacclimated with friends, with their communities. This is really important to kind of avoid that recidivism that we're seeing so largely across the board. And then once released, students struggle again with receiving credits or grades while earned while attending Passages Academy. I want to point out again that this is a large issue. I can't stress this enough, that if a young person is in a detention setting and has the ability to earn any amount of credits, 1 to 20 to 10, whatever it may be, it's really important that that young person get those credits. If you're in a circumstance where you're in a placement setting and you're able to work through that, and still, even if you have an IEP, even if you don't, you're in a general education setting. If you earn credits, you deserve to have those credits transferred. And so if this is a problem, I think this is absolutely something that you should advocate for. And we'll talk a little bit about how. Passages Academy staff can fail to provide completed evaluations, IEP or SEP updates, noting the student's progress or lack of progress. And this is also a trend where we see many people are confused. Like, did my son get his IEP reviewed? He was due for a review. Did it happen? I didn't get notice of that. What's going on? And that's a problem, right? We know that students are granted a review every year, and we want to make sure that even if in placement, this is happening. So this is one of the common issues that we're seeing. And then lastly, once released, students wish to explore alternative pathways to graduation. However, parents have limited resources to getting students enrolled once they have re-entered. So we have tons of young people who, when they get out, often many of them are turning 18. They don't really have an interest in going back to a traditional high school setting. They want to know what their options are. They want to know, like, okay, can you help me get into another setting? Can I go to an alternative high school? Can I go to a transfer school? Can I go to Job Corps? These are all questions that I think are fair. And I think every young person has the right to choose what they want to do and how they want to earn their diploma or GED, if this is something that they want to do. And again, I think these are the common issues that we are seeing once a young person re-enters. And this is going to be a shameless plug, because I know I said I was going to be talking a bit about how to resolve these issues. There is no one answer. This is as we know, professionals in this system, I think we understand that there are a lot of challenges. And so the answer that I'm going to give you is call me. Contact AFC. We are here. We are a resource. We can help you get through these issues. I have helped many in the past. If you're on here, if you're from any Avenues for Justice, if you're from any of those organizations, you know that these are common issues that you are absolutely able to get through if you contact Advocates for Children. Shameless plug. I'm so sorry. So we want to get into takeaways, because I think this is going to be one of the things that you should remember as we wind down and you get back into the work and you do this work every day. We want to remember students must attend school if they are within the compulsory school age. Education cannot be denied. So just because a young person is in a placement setting, secure, non-secure, it does not matter. Education cannot be denied. Students have the right to attend the school they previously attended prior to detention or placement, with this caveat, if there are no court orders preventing such. So again, those court orders, full or limited orders of protection. Students have the right to attend if those things do not exist. Parents have the right to be informed and participate in IEP SEP, or general education meetings pertaining to their child's progress while attending Passages Academy. Parents have the right to be contacted. Make sure your parents are involved. Students have the right to receive special education services in both secure and close to home placement. So again, our close to homes are non-secure and limited secure. Students have the right to special education services, secure, non-secure, and limited secure placements. An ACS specialist or a non-secure case planner, manager, whoever it may be, should assist a student and family with education-related planning for re-entry. So again, not in our secure detention spaces. We're talking specifically about our non-secure and limited secure spaces. There should be a team of folks who are assigned to assist a student and family with education-related planning, right, for reentry. And lastly, parents can connect with the school psychologist at both Passages and Horizons Juvenile Detention Center to request an evaluation or reevaluation if their child has or may suspect their child has a disability. So this is, again, important. Parents do not remember that they have this right. They can contact someone at the secure detention facility, whether it be Horizon or whether it be Crossroads, to make sure that their children either get reevaluated or that an IEP is reviewed during the due date. And then again, a shameless plug, parents can contact AFC at any point, right? And this is at any point. This is whether or not the child is still at Crossroads or Horizon. I have clients who are currently spending time on the inside in both facilities, and I have clients who are in the non-secure settings. Not so much the limited secures, but the non-secures. However, parents can contact AFC at any point, if there are education-related issues once the student even re-enters. So this is prior to the re-entry and while the re-entry planning should be happening. So I want to thank everyone for participating in today's webinar. Again, my name is Lisa Bernard. I have included my email at the bottom of this slide. Again, if you are facing any of these issues with your court-involved young people, with young people who are either in placement settings or are now out of placement settings, and you have education-related issues that come up, you can feel free to email me or you can call our helpline and they will connect you with me as well. We also have an email here a general email here for Advocates for Children. If you have a referral, if you have any other issues that are coming up for young people, you can feel free to contact us. Again, we thank you so much for participating. We're going to be taking questions after this, and we hope you learned something today. Thank you.